Hey, what's up, everybody? Good morning. Onorato and Company popping back on to hang out with you all on the News Channel 13 Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube pages because we are debuting the KPM Restoration Rapid Reaction segment. Something big happens in the world of sports, Ash, be it a game, a trade, a hire, a fire, whatever it is.
Yep.
We're going to jump on the social media channels of News Channel 13 to give our reaction and give you an opportunity to chime in as well. The NBA Finals are now done, and the Warriors win the title. Let's get things going here on the KPM Restoration Rapid Reaction.
This Onorato and Company Rapid Reaction is presented by KPM Restoration.
So just like I kind of figured it would be, the Warriors were able to wrap things up in Boston in Game 6, coming off that dreadful performance by Steph Curry in Game 5 at home. I thought this guy's going to have a big game. He's going to have a good enough game that cements him as the NBA Finals MVP for the first time in his career. And it played out
just that way.
Maybe the way I expected, but a 13-point victory after falling down double digits early. Warriors get their fourth title, Ash, in the last 8 years.
Yeah, listen, it's funny because I don't know that people have even mentioned this team in terms of dynasties, potential dynasty, because of the way that things have kind of played out. They went to 5 finals in a row before they really went in the tank. And what we have to remember is they only went in the tank because of devastating injuries. Had this team been healthy, there's no telling what they could have done. So their fourth title in 8 years. Now they're back on top after having the league's worst record just a couple years ago. He gets his finals MVP. Listen, for me, that wasn't a question. I didn't need him to have that to put him in the upper echelon of best all-time players, but I understand that all of the best players have that. So good for Steph for getting that. I was a little surprised at the emotion. I told you, a minute left, the waterworks started, and they lasted for a really long time. He had trouble kind of composing himself, but I was surprised having this be his fourth title, that the emotions were that raw and that real for him still.
All right, what do you want to talk about first? Where this puts Steph Curry in history, or where this puts the Warriors in history?
Yeah, where it puts the Warriors, or another thing I don't think people are talking about is Steve Kerr. This guy has 5 titles as a player, 4 now as a coach. He's only the 6th coach to ever do it. He's got 9 rings altogether. Yeah. This guy, obviously he's a Hall of Famer, but where is he in all-time greats in terms of, and I know he wasn't the player on any of those teams, but still, you get 9 rings. You don't do that by being bad.
Yeah, Phil Jackson with 11. All right, are the Warriors a dynasty? Is this a dynasty? 4 in 8 years. Is that enough to make it a dynasty for you? They won back-to-back with Steph, Clay, and KD, and then they play the Raptors, and you get the Thompson injury, you get the Durant injury, and they didn't look like they belonged part of that series at all. Maybe Toronto wins that series even if Durant and Clay are healthy. That was a good Raptors team, of course, led by Kawhi Leonard. Is this a dynasty? Have they won enough back-to-back or 4 in 8, however you want to look at it, that you say, yes, this team defines dynasty?
Yeah, because I think, listen, you have to consider the injuries. If you take Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan off those Bulls teams, they're not winning. But there's an excuse.
I get that, but it happened. It happened. And sometimes injuries derail the course of history. Right?
I get that.
Only some teams get the moniker of dynasty.
I understand that, but there's a difference. Like that's the reason they weren't. That's the reason they were at the bottom of the league. There's an excuse for what they weren't just bad like that. So that's the difference for me, is that when injuries just totally tank a team because your best players aren't on the floor, that to me doesn't affect my view of the dynasty, because as soon as they were healthy, look where they are once again. So yes, for me, it's a dynasty.
And it is for me too. I'm just kind of taking the other side of it here. And for anybody who wants to argue against it, I would ask you, go back a couple of years and answer this question honestly. Were the Spurs a dynasty? Spurs won 4 in 9 years. They were winning like every other year for a little bit. They won 03, 05, 07, and 99 before that. Those are the 4 in the 9 years. And then they won again in 14. So I consider the Spurs to be that.
Yep.
I consider the Warriors to be that. Now, do you have different degrees of dynasties? Are we going to get cute with that? That like the Lakers with Kobe and Shaq won 3 straight. That's
Yep.
more of a dynasty. Jordan and the Bulls, that's more of a dynasty. Like if we're going to create degrees of dynasties, I can get behind that. Remember, the Patriots are a dynasty. How many times they win back-to-back Super Bowls? Once. So it's not really about the back-to-back or consecutive titles. It's how many in a condensed amount of time, and 4 and 8 is good enough for me. Think about this too. Jonathan Kuminga, I think he's going to be a special player in this league. Couldn't get on the floor in the postseason. And you have James Wiseman, who will come back from injury, a former #1 overall pick. This Warriors team is going to look different because they have cap issues, but they have a lot of young talent on this team as well that I think carries Steph. He's 34 now until he's 38, where he can still kind of be a dead-eye three-point shooter. So we're both on the Warriors here as a dynasty. Okay, you brought this up as well. What does it do for Steph Curry's legacy?
This is a little harder for me. It feels like, and I don't know the reason why, it feels like Steph is just in a different category for people. And I guess that's unfortunate for him. I'm not sure what it is, because there are so many people, myself included, that talk about Steph as the greatest shooter of all time. Now that it doesn't matter what he does for the rest of his career, he is the greatest shooter of all time. He's changed the game. But I think people still have trouble putting him in their top 5 for sure. He's probably in my top 10 at this point, but I don't know many people who would put him in their top 5.
I don't know that I know many people who would put him in their top 10, and I would disagree with those people. He is a
4th title and a Finals MVP has to elevate him in some capacity to be close to a top 10.
I got a list for you here. He's a 2-time regular season MVP. He now has the NBA Finals MVP, and he has 4 titles. Players in history who have won 4 titles, a regular season, and a Finals MVP, okay, not necessarily multiples of each, but at least one: Kareem, Duncan, LeBron, Magic, Michael, and Steph. That's it. That's the list. 6 guys. So I'm with you. Steph, unfortunately, gets pegged as a shooter because of how great he is at that one particular skill. But he's a winner.
Yeah,
he is an absolute winner. Look at what he did even at Davidson, Ash. Okay, yes, he is individually great, but he elevated a mid-major team to an Elite 8. This guy is an absolute winner. He is top 10 for me for sure, because of the way he has revolutionized the game. That has to be part of the conversation. And the way he has won 4 titles, 8 years, regular season MVPs. Okay, it isn't like he just strung together 6 good games in a finals. He was part of great teams, but he was the driving force of those teams when he was the MVP. So he was top 10 for me before this finals. This has now cemented it for me, and I feel better about my argument against the people who don't want to put him in the top 10.
Yeah, and listen, I think part of it was people didn't like the idea of the big 3 because the Warriors had their own big 3, and it included KD. And that changed people's minds because I think people thought, well, they won back-to-backs, but it was really more because they had KD. Well, now he's won 2 without him, and he was the MVP of the finals this year. So I think for some people, they had to just kind of separate that. And I think this year should do it for those people. He did it without KD. KD is now gone. The Warriors are healthy, and they were back to where they were. So yeah, for me, he's top 10 as well. The knock will always be, does he play defense as well as some of those other guys? Does he do everything else that there is to do on the basketball court other than shoot? And shooting is a big part of it. But does he do everything else?
Okay, I'm going to push back not on you, but on that opinion. Steph Curry is one of the greatest ball handlers I've ever seen in the history of this sport. Kyrie Irving might be number 1. Steph, if you go back and look at some of what Steph did throughout his career with the basketball, the way the drills he goes through, the way he trains, his ability to shoot, yes, allows him to get to the basket because guys really press up on. But it's his handle that allows him to split, a double team, to get by defenders with ease, to get to the basket. I think he finishes well at the rim
Yeah, he
for
does.
his size. He's put on weight throughout his career. He's muscular now more than he was when he came in. He has built himself up now that he's into his mid-30s to be a guy who can endure some of the physicality of this sport. I think Steph does a lot more than people realize. I think he's a very underrated passer.
Yep.
I'm not going to go to the point of like, hey, great defender, great rebounder, but I don't need him to be that. I don't need him to be that. He is so good at the other things he does that I don't need him to be this incredibly multifaceted player for me to consider him one of the greats of all time.
I think some people do.
Yeah,
and that's fine. And that's what makes the world great. Everyone has different opinions. But listen, the Warriors have done it all right. Like, they go to the bottom of the league because of injuries. So they get lucky because of their draft status, but they've drafted well. You mentioned Kuminga and Wiseman. Those guys are going to be great for a long time, I think. They've made smart moves. Like, the addition of Andrew Wiggins has changed the finals for the Golden State Warriors. He came off maybe his best game ever and followed it up with a game where he just stuffed the stat sheet. 18 points. I think he went 6 rebounds, 5 and 4, maybe something like that. 6, 5, and 4. Like, that is stuffing the stat sheet from a guy that I think maybe people wrote off, but it's all about situation. He was in a situation that didn't fit him. Now he's in a situation where he's the 4th guy and he's shining in the biggest way.
Yeah. Is it Curry, Clay, Poole, Wiggins? Curry, Wiggins,
maybe.
Poole, Clay? I don't know where he ranks
off the bench
in those 4, but and that's the thing. Again, he gets the knock because he was a number 1 overall pick, immensely talented at Kansas. And even at Kansas, you kind of watched him weekly and thought, okay, where is this all-time great player I keep hearing about? And we finally saw it this year because he's in the right situation. He's not going to be the number 1 guy on a championship team.
Yeah.
He's the number 3 guy on a championship team. It fits him perfectly. And the thing about how the Warriors got to him, right? They made deals to get, KD had to go from Golden State to Brooklyn. So, okay, here comes D'Angelo Russell. We play with Russell for a year, able to flip Russell to Minnesota for Wiggins. You're right. They've drafted well, but the front office has done a really good job about filling in around the healthy Steph, Clay, and Draymond. Let's look ahead to next year, because why shouldn't we? Golden State's the favorite. Of course they will be. They're 5-1, but they're not a heavy favorite by any means at 5-1. Brooklyn and Boston, even odds at 6-1 for the 2 of them. Milwaukee just won a title a couple of years ago, 15-2, and then Phoenix and the Clippers 8-1. If you had to pick one of these teams that isn't the Warriors to repeat, where do you go?
Maybe Milwaukee. I'm just not. I was on the Brooklyn bandwagon pretty hard, and until they really do something and figure out who is going to be on their team that's going to work and who is not, I just am not. I'm not ready for that yet. Maybe back to Milwaukee because I think Giannis still, when he's great, he's the best player on the planet. I'll go Milwaukee. What about you?
I think Brooklyn.
Okay.
I would love to see Phoenix do it. I really would.
Yeah,
but they have too much uncertainty. They're talking about maybe trading DeAndre Ayton. I don't like the direction that appears to be going. That is not a good move for me if they were to trade Ayton. Clippers, look, you get a healthy Kawhi, and maybe that changes the entire landscape. That's a good roster already. But I'll roll with a guy like Irving and Durant, and then fill in the other pieces, and you got as good a shot as anybody else. So if I have $100 to put down on one of these teams, I'll put it on Brooklyn.
Okay. Yeah. Now, does this make Boston better? Listen, Boston, for as close as this series was, they were pretty horrendous at times. Last night they were out to a 14-2 lead. It was gone in a second. And once that happened, it never felt close for me. I think I told you it got to within 8. They turned the ball over 22 times at the most inconvenient times. And that is something that has plagued this team all postseason, especially in the finals. Every time they've lost, they've hit about 20 turnovers, which is just absurd.
Yeah, I don't think Tatum and Brown are almost untouchables for me. Tatum for sure. Brown, I'd have
Listen,
to.
Brown was maybe the best player on the floor last night, and Tatum
Yep,
was
yep.
not
And
there.
Tatum had a bad series,
Yeah.
point
Yep.
blank. But maybe Brown has just kind of upped his trade value to.
Mhm.
I don't know what they feel like they would have
Yeah.
to get in return for. But outside of those two guys, I could live with a lot of whatever else is on the roster, and I'm including Marcus Smart, who I
Yep.
like
Yep.
and is Defensive Player of the Year. To me, is
Derek
not an
White's really
untouchable.
good.
They 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 need to. I don't like them here at 6-1. I
Yeah,
know
no,
they had a great year, good
yep.
defensively, but I would put a number of teams ahead of Boston,
Yeah.
even to get back to the finals next year.
Yeah. And
That's
I
me.
know people are going to say experience. And listen, experience, we talked about the numbers. It was like 123 games of finals experience to 0. It makes a difference. There's no doubt it makes a difference. But yeah, they just didn't show up when the lights were brightest. They didn't play the way that they had played all postseason up until then. It was scattered. It was messy. It wasn't pretty for most of the time. So yeah, I think listen, every team, not every team, a lot of teams lose before they win. So I think it makes them better, but I'm not on their bandwagon for next year.
Okay, what's happening this weekend? We are going to go hang out with Wayne Krebet in
Tonight.
Queensbury tonight, Friday
Mhm.
night. You will be hanging out the Professional Women's Bowling Tour with
Yep.
Liz Culkin from the
The US
Rotterdam
Women's
area.
Open.
Yep.
Today is day 2 of qualifying rounds.
We've got the Patroons in the Eastern Conference Finals of the Basketball League. The U.S. Open Golf is on
News Channel
NBC and
13.
News Channel 13.
Yep.
It's Father's Day. It's Juneteenth. It's the first day of summer. It is a big, big weekend. And oh, by the
Yes.
way, it'll be game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final, Saturday night, Lightning and Avalanche. I say Tampa. You?
I'm going to go Avs again.
Okay. We'll be
Riding
up
the Avs
2-0.
bandwagon.
Tampa was down 2-0 in the Eastern Conference Final
Yep.
with the Rangers. They would need another
I was going to
big-time
say, this
comeback.
doesn't feel like a team you can make up big series deficits to.
No, got to win tonight.
Yeah.
Got to win tonight if you're going to win the series, I think, if you're Tampa Bay. All right, Ash, the first of our KPM Restoration rapid reactions here.
First of many.
On Onorato and Company. That's right. Something big happens in the world of sports. We're popping on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube on the News Channel 13 channels. Thanks for watching and hanging out. Everybody have a great